Veera sir, are you there?
Yes, sir. Suresh, sir.
Please. I hope you have initiated the recording.
Yes,
Speaker
yes,
is joined with us, sir.
It's getting recorded.
Okay. What about the speaker, sir?
Yes, Vivian sir here only. Yes,
Okay,
joined.
sir, and then who's going to introduce you, sir?
It was not audible. I'm sorry.
Who's going to introduce the speaker now? Okay. Check your message.
Yeah.
I'll do the welcome.
Okay.
Yeah. Good evening to all present here, and I'm happy to welcome all the participants. I'm happy to welcome all the participants for today's webinar session. It is our 256th webinar session on adolescence and autonomy by Mr. Vivian. He is an assistant professor of psychology at Meta School of Social Work, Chennai. I today's speaker as well as the participant over here on behalf of the Department of Psychology, American College, and our co-associating institutions, Meta School of Social Work, MHLM, Institute Madurai, International for Clinical Psychology and Psychotherapy, Germany, National Association for Psychooncology, Turkey, and Red Pond Education Psychology Research Center. I welcome each one of you for today's webinar session. I hope you will enjoy the session. And now I request Mr. Veera, sir, he will introduce the speaker over here. So, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Suresh, and welcome on and myself, Veera, from the core team. Yes, we have today's speaker, Mr. Vivian Thomas. Mr. Vivian Thomas, who is actually assistant professor of psychology from Madras School of Social Work. And to have a great session, I request all the participants to mute your video as well audio and not to if in case of switch on the video, please make sure to wear a decent outfit and all your queries can be clarified in the QA session. Yes, I request Vivian sir to proceed further to take over further. Vivian sir, you will do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So it's actually a pleasure for me to be actually collaborating with all the organizers for this program. So it's especially a very special moment for me because this program is being collaborated with American College, and my mother, my grandfather, and my great grandfather all are products of American College. So it's indeed a with such a great college. So thank you for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to actually present this topic on adolescence and autonomy. So without any much further ado, I'll start with the presentation. Is the presentation visible to everyone?
Yeah.
So I'd like to start with an opening quote. So it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Okay, this statement cannot be more truer than what we are currently facing, especially in the times of a global pandemic when everything is in chaos. It becomes imperative for us to actually give more importance to the children, okay, who are actually in their growing phase, and to actually cater to their needs for proper and complete development of them as an individual. Okay, so that is one reason why I chose this topic. So let's first start with the definition of adolescence, right? So it is a transitional phase of growth and development and between childhood and adulthood. The World Health Organization defines an adolescent as any person between the age of 10 to 19. This age range falls within whose definition of young people, which refers to individuals between the age of 10 and 24. Okay, this is something we all know, right? So why is it imperative for us to study adolescence? Can anyone from the audience give me an answer as to why we study adolescence in specific, right? Why is it such a stressful stressed upon area in many researchers?
Sir, can I say?
Yeah.
Sir, I feel that is the stage where there's a major change in the emotional and physical changes, and there's also an atmospherical changes where they are considered to be more responsible and more independent, which which actually pressurizes the person, and they're in a state of confusion where they need to make decisions, but they are not very strong enough in making decisions, or probably their decisions are not respected, or they are not given an opportunity to take decisions. So this kind of a very confused state of mind where they don't know whom to trust, probably.
Yeah.
Or they don't know whom they can share their real emotions with.
Yeah. So apart from all this, these are like this is a time for searching for identity, as someone put it in the chat. Okay, apart from this, why does it become important in the Indian context, right? Because adolescents all through interest in Indian adolescents. Like, why should we as a country try to develop adolescents? Can anyone just give me what their opinions are, or any ideas you have about this?
So we are culturally, we are very much dependent on the family system. And I'm Vallikala. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So culturally,
Yes, sir,
we
yes,
have
yes, ma'am.
a family system, and I think adolescence goes till 25 in India, and even when I'm 50 or 40, when I'm before my parent, I behave like an adolescent. So
Okay,
I just that is the scenario in India. So
okay, ma'am.
just now I joined. So this
Okay.
is the thing I wanted to share.
Okay. And I think Dr. Vajanti Mala also mentioned in the chat saying a lot of expectations, and yeah. So we follow a lot of cultural heritage, values, and all this. Okay. So before I actually give you the answers as to why we are actually looking at it, I would like to show you a few statistics which are actually pertinent to our country. So why study adolescents? Adolescents contribute to 18% of our total population. Okay, in our country, a total of 18% is contributed just by adolescents, and 50% of our total population is contributed by young people, between the age of 5 and 34. Okay, and India by 2023 will have the world even ahead of China. Okay, which is a great number of resources which we are generating, right? So how we channel this productive population, especially in this age wherein they have to be groomed properly into a fully functional individual, is very essential. That is why, to not waste this human resource which we have, right, it becomes very important for us to understand and help adolescents in the process of transition. So it is imperative by itself as to why so much of importance is given to population. So one more interesting thing which we have to look at when we talk about adolescence in India is this. Though alarming, these are very real figures. Among the most prevalent things in school going adolescents, 40 to 90% of adolescents with depression have comorbid psychiatric disorders such as anxiety disorder, conduct disorders, substance abuse, and personality disorders. Okay, anxiety disorders are commonly encountered among the population. In India, suicide is a leading cause of death among young people as 25% of deaths in adolescent boys and 50 to 75% of deaths in adolescent girls is due to suicide. Right? Every hour, one student commits suicide, and this is a statistics from 2015. Right? So now we can we can always extrapolate the statistics, because every hour one student is committing suicide. Okay, India is among the leading countries where suicide is common, and especially in adolescents and college students suicide. We lead the world actually, right? So why does this happen? Okay, and why all this happens? Okay, this information in a study by Naresh Nebihani and Shreyans Jain in 2019. Okay, so next, I will actually break this presentation into majorly three parts. First, we will be talking about the biological perspective of an adolescent brain, the sociological perspective, and the intrapersonal and all these conflict areas. Okay, so first, when we talk about an adolescent brain, okay, so when we talk about adolescent brain, the limbic system and amygdala, okay, for those of you who are familiar with it, which is situated deep inside the brain, are very important for emotions and rewards, which develop relatively. In children, we see an egocentric behavior and the need for immediate gratification of needs, right? When children are growing up, they will immediately, whenever they want something, a balloon, a chocolate, they immediately want it at hand, right? So that is why the limbic system and the amygdala develop relatively early in children. The frontal lobe of the brain, which is particularly important for executive functions, which includes planning, reasoning, and decision making, and inhibition, develops at the onset of puberty. Okay, so biologically, a child's brain, which is more tuned to immediate gratification of needs, is actually starting to develop into a fully functioning brain, wherein it is capable of making decisions by itself. Okay, and that is because of the development of the frontal cortex, and that is why this starts at puberty, namely adolescence, and this continues on till 2020. Okay, maturation continues till 25 years of age, and this may explain why adolescent and young people tend to take risks and are prone to hot cognitions, making decisions rooted in emotions and experience rather than logical reasoning. Okay, sorry, just a minute. So from a cognitive perspective, when we look at Piaget's stages of cognitive development is a common one which we use in psychology. So if we see this formal operational stage, that is at the age of 11 and older, that is when we actually start seeing that children start developing a sense of abstract reasoning. Okay, though they are the child's brain is actually tuned to more of cause and effect, direct cause and effect, right? If a child doesn't cooperate with his fellow classmates, or if the child doesn't actually realizes that it will be penalized by negative reinforcements or punishments. Okay, so the thinking of a child before the age of 11 is predominantly driven by direct cause and effects, which are not abstract in nature. Whereas from the age of 11, that is when the child actually starts thinking, in hypotheses and abstractions. Okay, so if we are talking about, say a situation wherein a decision has to be made, the child will start taking into account the other stakeholders who are involved in the process in an abstract way, not just a direct cause and effect, but it will start weighing in options, alternatives. So that kind of decision making or a logical reasoning starts developing only at the age of 11, and it continues on till later ages also. Okay, so concepts are learned in one context and can be applied in other. Transference of learning, right? Strategy, planning, all this becomes possible at the onset of adolescence, especially with the development of the frontal cortex. So a similar thing can also be seen in stages of development. We see this in the stage of identity versus confusion and fidelity. Okay, a sense of complexity of life, merging of sensory and logical aesthetic perceptions, right? The child starts making sense of the world around it. Okay, the world is not just cause and effect, but also there are subtle nuances which have to be learned. Okay, appreciations of art and all this. Okay, these do not develop, explicitly during childhood, but they start developing during adolescence and continue on. Okay, so these are some of the cognitive perspectives which we take when we are looking at adolescence. So the classical, confusion, West versus East. So can someone tell me what they understand by the cultural differences between the West and the East? Because this has been an ongoing debate for so long, and we have a present, a table also showing the differences. So what is your understanding from the audience as to what the difference is between the West and the East? Okay, so typically in an Eastern system, typically when we talk about East, we talk about Chinese and Indian societies, wherein the family and group are extended, multiple parents. Okay, parenting, a primary relationship between the parent-child bond, emphasis on interpersonal relationship, and status and relationship are determined by age and role in the family, well-defined family member roles, favoritism towards males, though that is changing now, but still it is in the society. Authoritarian orientation, suppression of emotions, karma, harmony with nature, cooperative orientation, spiritualism, past, present, and future orientation. Whereas when we talk about an individual, Western society, they are more individually oriented, nuclear families, couple parenting. Primary relationship is with the marital bond. Okay, emphasis on self-fulfillment and self-development. Status is achieved by individual's effort. Okay, flexible family roles, increasing opportunities for females, democratic orientation, expression of emotions, personal control over environment, mastery over nature, competition orientation, materialism and consumerism, and present and future orientation.
हाथ धो के कपड़ा डाल के आ जाओ, डब्बा तो बाहर रखा है ना। हाँ, मैं इधर उधर बोलती हूँ।
Yes. Okay, so these are the societal differences which we see between the West and the East, right? Because now in a global village wherein we are having the West fusing with the East, there is a lot of cultural milieu happening, and the social systems are slowly changing. We have to understand which traits are getting added, which traits need to be deleted, and all this. Okay, the cultural and social aspects have to be taken into consideration also. So yes, when we talk about an individualistic perspective, unlimited power is apt because the focus is on an individual, and when there is a loss of check, okay, unlimited power is apt to corrupt the minds of those who possess it, and this, I know, my lords, that where law ends, okay, tyranny begins. William Pitt. Okay, so when we talk about an individualistic culture, predominantly the Western culture, it is also to be noted that when so much of importance is given to an one single individual, okay, the power of autonomy is given to them without any checks, it can be problematic. So the power of autonomy has to be tempered also at the same time. And here, when we talk about the East, we all know two heads are better than one, but it is always good to remember too many cooks spoil the broth, because when you come to parenting in an Eastern context, it is usually not just the parents alone who are involved in the process, but the immediate family members, the society. So, as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a leader. So, we have to take into consideration how the effect of others also plays a role in parenting and upbringing of a child. Right. So these are certain features which we see in typical, Indian parenting: authoritarianism, low response, high control, micromanagement, multiple stakeholders, deep-rooted sense of moral and societal values, a collective sense of we or us, and typically what is identified as helicopter parenting. So, yeah, someone from the chat said next house uncle control also, right? So how many of you agree with these statements which are put forth in this slide about typical parenting in India? You can talk from your experience as a parent or a child. Yeah, someone from chat said Sharma ji ka beta. Right. So how many of you actually concur with these statements? Right. This is like what we see in typical Indian parenting. Why do we have the concept of micromanagement in this parenting? Right. Why do we have anyone has any ideas why the micromanagement has been included in this?
So we sort of tend to take control of children's lives within ourselves. The locus of control is more external.
Okay. Too much of control. Yes. Okay. So one small example I'd like to give. Actually, there are many. One small example is we are funding a $64 billion industry. In case you guys are wondering what this is, these are the cram schools you see in Kota. Okay, the place where they train, IIT aspirants. Okay, I think all of you are familiar with it. So we are actually funding a $64 billion industry, and these statistics are from 2012. Okay, now we don't know how much it is, but you can imagine because the competitiveness hasn't gone down, but it has only sorely increased, right? The reason why I brought this up in micromanagement is because how many of these students actually want to or aspire to be in an IIT or an engineering college, right? So this also leads us to the question of how many, underprepared graduates are being churned out from engineering colleges. Okay, we are all familiar with it. We have a lot of unemployable engineers being churned out from, engineering colleges because of these kind of pushing. Because in a typical Indian scenario, for humor's sake, we'll always say, a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer is the pride of the family. Anything else is just a disgrace to the family, right? These are all common things which we hear, which are maybe funny in nature, but actually they're really true. Okay, and one more thing is why parenting is not just about parents and about everyone else is we always have the sense of comparison going on, right? All of us would have experienced it at some point. There is the sense of comparison wherein our parents like comparing, like say Sharma ji ke beta ne itna mark liya, right? And someone said in the chat box also, career options, okay, are not allowed to explore. Okay, so even if a child wants to pursue something or has interest towards something, inclination, it is not actually fostered but always chided. Yeah. So the parental dreams and aspirations are actually forced onto the children. Okay. So the transition from childhood is markedly identified by the process of individuation. Okay, so in case we are wondering what individuations, we'll come to it a little later. This is a process of disengaging from internalized schemas of caregivers formed during childhood and establishing a sense of self as an individual, thereby reducing psychological dependence. This includes self-esteem, self-regulation, and self-definition. Okay, so the transition of from childhood. Okay, the transition from childhood is markedly identified as this process of individuation. This is the process wherein a child who has been dependent on the parent, okay, because the child looks to the parent for support, and anything the child experiences is directly from the parents. Okay, so the egocentric behavior revolves only around what the parents provide. So it becomes the parents are a kind of a god figure to the children who are growing up. Okay, by the process of individuation, the children actually detach from this idea of parents and internalized schemas. Okay, so the children have to undergo a process wherein they try to detach themselves, right? They have to gain their independence. Okay, because the parents will not be there the entire life for the child, right? The child has to function on its own as an individual. So this process of individuation is very crucial for the development of adolescents, because this is the transition phase wherein they learn necessary skills required for them to become functioning adults. Yes, I think we have a question from Madhumita. Yes.
We will have a question and answer at the end of the session. We can continue.
Okay, sir. So the process of individuation is actually very crucial in adolescence for fully functioning individuals. Okay, it's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. Okay, most of them, most of you, I think, will be familiar with this Batman's quote. The reason why I added this here is, no matter how or what kind of an upbringing we are, given, right? But what we do is what defines us. Okay, so this is a very a summary of the process of individuation. What we do is what defines us. Okay, so defining ourselves as individuals is very important during the phase of adolescence, right? So without this process of individuation, all we'll be raising is children. Okay, I just modify the word children into a children, wherein we are raising drones, okay, and not fully functioning in adults. Because when the child doesn't successfully individuate from the parents, okay, all that is left is an identical copy of the parent on the child. Okay, the sense of identity is hinged heavily on the parent, and that is why the child becomes a drone to the parent. Okay, so that is why I have a picture of a drone here. So what is autonomy? The next part of our session. Okay, autonomy represents a sense of volition or the feeling of doing something, or something by one's own decision or initiative. Okay, autonomy becomes important during adolescence because it defines them as unique, capable, and independent individuals who rely less on the older adults and are capable of self-governance. Okay, so one thing we have to notice, when even as small children, we actually expect self-governance from them, right? So I think pretty much we have seen this. Okay, whenever a child makes a mistake, we hold the child accountable for it. Okay, even before the age of 10. Okay, so but how much so do we actually give this to adolescents, right? The right of self-governance, we don't, right? Even after they transition from childhood into adolescence, we still treat them like children. Okay, so I would actually ask an open question to the audience here. So how many of you have actually experienced autonomy during adolescence? Like proper autonomy, right? As you see here, capable individuals who rely less on older adults and are capable of self-governance, includes decision making, self-reliance, and conformity. So how many of us have actually experienced self-governance or autonomy?
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay.
No, sir, definitely not.
I'm small doubt.
I'm still 19 and I'm trying to take control over my life by myself.
Okay.
I have a small doubt. Like, for example, I was given an option to choose after my 10th standard. My father gave me, he just told me, you select whichever school, whichever group you want to study, and let me know the fees, I'll pay you.
Okay, ma'am.
Would this come as an autonomy?
Okay, ma'am. That is one area of our life, right?
Yeah,
academics
absolutely.
and yeah. So
in terms of career decision, probably that also comes as the first stage, if I'm not wrong.
yes, ma'am.
So will this come like that? If that is the case, then I've had this freedom of choosing the school where I wanted to study after my 10th. And
Okay, ma'am.
to some extent to the college which I wanted to study, and whatever I studied in future after that,
Okay, ma'am.
I was completely given freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as you said, that is one facet of freedom, and I do not say that all of us haven't experienced autonomy. We do experience autonomy to some extent. Okay, that is not deniable, but I will talk a little bit more about this autonomy in the subsequent slides also. So, some of us have been actually lucky with having autonomy. So it doesn't necessarily apply always. In psychology, we do refer to the normal bell curve, right? There are majority of people in the center and there are outliers on the extreme ends. So some of us might have been lucky to have that kind of an autonomy being given to us. Right? Someone says autonomy with conditions applied. Right? Okay, so self-governance includes decision-making, self-reliance, and conformity. Why decision-making? Okay, so as ma'am said, few people are given the luxury of making decisions of our own, right? And self-reliance is when we can actually rely on ourselves. Okay, we don't have to expect support or resources from an external source, but we can always rely on our internal resources for getting something done. Okay, self-reliance. And conformity is one thing which we note in adolescence is peer pressure, right? I think I think we'll have the question and the answers for the Q&A session. First, when we talk about adolescence, one key topic is peer pressure, right? So when we talk about peer pressure, it comes under conformity. Okay, the willingness of a child to conform to the group norms. Okay, it can be anything, ranging from bunking classes or actually something functional also, because not every peer pressure is bad. Okay, sometimes the peer pressure can work in the favor of positive development of the adolescents, but those cases are rare. But when we talk about peer pressure, the child conformity actually shifts from parents to adolescents. So when we talk about conformity, so when we talk about conformity, usually a child who is actually entering adolescence, okay, the first initial transition phases, the reliance will be heavily on the parent. Okay, and this reliance or conformity towards parents slowly shifts towards the peer. Okay, peers or peer pressure almost towards the middle of adolescence. But during the late adolescence, the peer pressure actually drops. Okay, so on contrary to popular belief, wherein we believe that the peer pressure is actually consistent throughout the development of adolescence, it is not so. It actually peaks and it drops. Okay, so that is what we talk about in conformity. Okay, so here are actually the three functional phases of autonomy. Okay, emotional autonomy, behavioral autonomy, and value autonomy. Okay, so here I think, as ma'am was saying, behavioral autonomy, ability to make decisions followed by corresponding actions. Okay, you are given the freedom to choose your own course, the college in which you want to study. All these are behavioral autonomies given. Okay, emotional autonomy is personal feelings and emotions pertaining to how we relate to others. Okay, because in Indian families, in a lot of cases, I'm not saying in all cases, in a lot of cases, we'll see that emotional autonomy is kind of stunted. Okay, for example, you will always, in families, you will have a lot of relatives, right? In India, there is always some relative or the other, okay, coming into the family. So sometimes, as an adolescent, we might not like a particular individual or a relative. Okay, even that can be a grandfather also. Okay, but immediately what the parent says, you should not feel like that, right? Your emotional experiences or your own emotional relations to people are actually cut short. Okay, so our preference of emotional bonding to one person over another is also curtailed during adolescence. How we should feel, right? The emotional quotient of a person has to be taken into account when we are talking about this, right? And behavioral autonomy, as we said, all this. And when we talk about behavioral autonomy, in India, we'll encounter some stereotypical situations. For example, if the child makes a mistake, okay, if the adolescent makes a mistake, immediately you will see that the immediate relatives who are there, they will be like, the parents didn't raise the child properly, right? How many of you have experienced this? Like any okay,
Very true. Very true.
any mistake which is done by the child is immediately projected to the parents, right?
Not only experienced, even now we are experiencing.
Yeah.
Sir, even if we don't do anything wrong, the parents will scare you by saying that others will come and complain about you to us, so don't do this.
Yeah.
So, and also parents will be pointing each other. It is you, because of you, the child is like this.
Both
of them will be telling it is you who is responsible for this dubious behavior.
Yeah. So here, when we talk about behavior autonomy, if the child stands up for himself and takes accountability for his or her own actions and says, I was the one who did the mistake, and why are you asking my parents? Immediately, the response from the parents will be like, go apologize to them. Right? I think, in student-teacher relationships also. So behavioral autonomy, wherein even if the adolescent, okay, the period wherein we have to be self-reliant and self-governance is of importance, and the child tries to take accountability for its actions, because accountability is very important when it comes to autonomy, because no power is given freely. Okay, so whatever power we take and whatever rights we exercise comes with a price, and we have to be ready to be held accountable for the consequences of our decisions, right? So that is one integral part of autonomy which we cannot neglect. So even when the child wants to take that kind of a responsibility for its actions, it is not allowed. Okay, so behavioral autonomy is also curtailed in the process. Then value. Okay, this is one thing which is very rampant in our society, right? I think we have a lot of older adults and young adults who are actually in colleges, right? So how many of you have felt that your parents or your immediate family members have actually taken you as a factor into making major decisions in their family, right? Sometimes you have financial decisions. Okay, sometimes you have simple decisions as buying a car for the family. Okay, when you were an adolescent, how many times have we felt that we were actually included in the process?
So actually, like when it comes to things like that, like buying a car and all, I was like at least included with the color decision. Okay, but like apart from that, if there was any financial like issues at home, if there was something where they felt the need that they couldn't share it to me because I was their child, because they felt that I wouldn't be able to handle it and I don't need to know.
Okay.
But I think it has the exact opposite like impact, actually speaking. So yeah.
More so in the Western context. Okay, in Indian context, we face all this, right? That the value of an adolescent as an individual. Okay, because this is the time we are trying to exercise autonomy, and gender discriminations also. Okay, so in this, we would actually like to be included as a part of the equation, right? As a functional individual. Okay, so we actually want to be an integral part of a process, whatever happens in the family. Okay, but most of the time, adolescents are not actually taken into account during major decisions or even valued as a functional person. Okay, we still treat them as children. Okay, keeping them, we think we are sheltering them from the storm, or we have a lot of our own convictions as to why we do that. Okay, the objective here is not to question, but to highlight why it is important, why the sense of value as a person is important. Okay, boundaries are required to be defined in families. Okay, so these are the 3 areas of autonomy which we have to take into account when we are talking about adolescence. Okay, so diffused identity, or when the individuation process is not proper, okay, when the individuation process is not complete or it is kind of hampered in some way, the outcomes are as follows. Okay, personality disorders, family and marital dysfunction, suicidal ideation, adjustment problems, lack of boundaries. Okay, lack of boundaries is one very crucial area which we have to look at. Intolerance of being alone or coercive control over others. Okay, these are excerpts from a study which was done in 1979. Okay, so the importance of the process of individuation and the effects of individuation have been long studied, but we still are trying to incorporate those into our daily functioning lives. Okay, so yeah. Now we will now that we have looked at all the problems, or the problem areas and areas which need to be addressed when we are talking about adolescence and autonomy, how can we facilitate the process? So can we have the audience actually give us some ideas as to how we can do this, how we can bridge the gap between adolescence?
There needs a clear contract. We should include them that as a parent, you are now as a member of the family, you are now open to take decision. And in this such areas, you will be that clear boundaries, as you said. That way, we can always facilitate them to, and they'll be more clear, not of confusion when the family will put them down in decision making, or when the mother or father will include them. That confusion makes them more agitative. So we need to make very negotiable and non-negotiable rules and contracts that will be helpful for the child.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. Another point what we can do is to understand the current trend and generations, their ideology or their thoughts, and I think probably we should respect that as how they are perceiving a situation or any conditions. If we actually get down to their shoes, probably they will trust us, saying that okay, fine, they are thinking from my perspective. So I think I can open up to them, and maybe they're not going to judge me. They're not going to. They will not try to control me or scold me or whatever it is. So they are going to be by me. I can trust on them. If we get into their shoes, understanding their generation, that will help a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so here are just a few points which we can actually talk about. So first, we have to understand that parenting is a dynamic and continuous process. Okay, parenting is not static. Okay, the rules which we apply to a child may not apply to an adolescent. Okay, and what we apply to an adolescent may not hold good for an adult. Okay, though we are the children of our parents, the rules cannot be extended beyond certain ages, right? That compartmentalization or the understanding of transitioning roles has to be there. So parenting is a dynamic and continuous process. Okay, active listening. This is something we practice in counseling and in psychology. Like this forms the core of client-centered therapy. Okay, active listening. Okay, whenever the child comes to you with an experience, okay, or an or a story or something, okay, something to share, we have to actively listen to them and validate their experiences. Okay, and by validating, we do not mean enabling, but validating is understanding that they are a unique person and an individual person by themselves with unique experiences. So telling the children as to what you are feeling is completely baseless, or telling them that you are just overthinking things or something, things of this sort, these are dismissive statements which will actually make the children shut down. Okay, even if they want to share, they will not actually be able to openly discuss what is their experience and what is the problem they are facing with the parents in an open manner. Okay, and validating experience without enabling. Okay, so enabling is something we see very commonly in our culture, right? Whenever a child kind of bumps into a table or a child falls to the ground, immediately we are like, "Here, amma na ada adichirren." Right? Even for the surf excel ad, I think we had a surf excel ad, right, wherein the girl falls into a puddle of mud, and the boy is like going and beating the mud, right? That is enabling. Okay, enabling is basically uh, you know kind of supporting a maladaptive behavior. Okay, because falling down and having accidents is very common, right? And kind of compensating for that is not. So we are actually feeding a maladaptive behavior to the children, okay, by enabling certain behaviors. So validate experiences without enabling. So if the child is experiencing a problem, unless it is very drastic and which needs a certain change, we do not enable that kind of a behavior. If the child throws a tantrum and it gets the job done, you do not keep feeding that tantrum behaviors by providing all the more whatever it requires. Okay, so active listening and validating experiences without enabling the child. Okay, as a lot of you said, clear expectations and boundaries which are agreed upon by both parties. Okay, predominantly when we see about parenting, it is unidirectional. I expect this, you should do this. Without that, if we are more inclusive in the approach and say, see, these are my expectations, these are all what I can do for you. So I expect these from you. What are your expectations? What can you do? Okay, by doing so, we give them a behavioral autonomy as to making decisions for themselves, saying, I will be held accountable for the behaviors I do, which will be this. Okay, so these kind of small things. Okay, these are not very big things which will be practiced regularly, but being more active and conscious about this approach, okay, as to holding them accountable for their own behavior is very crucial. And for this, we need a conducive environment which will not just come abruptly during adolescence. This has to be practiced consistently from childhood to adolescence. Okay, because if the parent is very strict during childhood and you suddenly expect the child to be friendly with you, that's not going to happen. Okay, strict parents raise sneaky children. That is one saying which is commonly going around. Okay, so parenting, that is why I said it's a continuous and consistent process. Okay, we have to take this into account and do this consistently, right? Setting reasonable boundaries and giving them the free space of expression. Okay, whenever a child encounters a behavioral problem, we isolate the behavior rather than reject the person. Okay, so identifying these differences, subtle nuances, okay, will go a long way in actually promoting autonomy and individuation, thereby making adolescence a an enjoyable phase of life and making them a functional individual. Okay, so I would like to finish with this. It's not the strongest of the species that survive nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change, especially in the in the current scenario wherein we have a lot of cultural milieu going on, and especially with the pandemic and all, it's worse. So understanding where a change is needed and responding to the change is how we survive and we thrive. Okay, with this, I would like to conclude my presentation for today, and thank you for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to do this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session.
Thank you, sir.
Articulated, and I request participants, please unmute your mic and you can ask your question, or you can very well put it in the chat box. We can read out for the same.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions now, but I have a small request.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was actually seeing the slides for some time, but after that I had to drive my son back home.
Okay,
I'm
ma'am.
driving and I'm listening to whatever you said. So to the
Okay.
organizers, a small request: is it possible for you to share this PT? Is that possible?
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that, ma'am.
Thank you so much. This actually, because Now my son is 6.5 years old. I mean, the days run so fast, and
Yes, ma'am.
the time I hit there, I don't want to feel handicapped.
Okay, ma'am.
The world is moving really fast, and it's actually very confusing as to how to deal with a child. Even now, I am getting very confused with the way he asks me questions, or the way he interacts. It's very difficult. So
Yes.
I want to keep up to that gentle parenting that I've been following so far. I hope to continue this longer. I don't know. But thank you so much. It was wonderful sessions, and I would like to participate more for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, do we have any other questions which need clarifications?
Sir, one more question. Let me read in the chat box, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes. How should parents react to mistakes a child makes? I mean, when child makes a mistake, like how we have to react? Is that it means it? Oh.
We do not react, we respond, sir. Because reaction is immediate, whereas respond is more of a cognitive approach. So a proper appraisal of the situation and a proper dialogue will actually help the process. Instead of reacting, if we respond itself, a lot of problems will be solved.
Okay. And meanwhile, there are many positive notes in the chat box.
Sir.
I can see. Any other questions from the participant? Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. My name is Arni.
Yes,
And I have a son who is 14-year-old going for board exams. But thing is, he's not taking his studies so seriously since he is attending from home online classes. But all the time he is like, he's not taking his education so seriously. And I am so worried now. This is a board exam, and then how to make him more focused on his goal now, because right now it is very important for him to focus. It is only 3 months. How can I make him to focus on the studies, and then how to make him to stick to his goal? I mean, fix his goal and then work towards it. How can I help him to fix his goal and then work towards it?
Actually, there is no universal rule which fits all, ma'am. To be exact, for motivating, we actually have to, find why he is actually getting derailed in his academics. Like, why is the disinterest? The source of disinterest will actually give us an idea as to how we can bring more focus into the child, right? Because the distractions can be due to a lot of things, not seeing his friends or being cooped up inside the family, because now it's a pandemic. So understanding why the distraction or the deviation from focus on academics has to be identified first in order to actually facilitate the child to develop focus in academics.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Yes.
Good evening. May I know how to have a healthy relationship with your parents in this pandemic? Because it has been very stressful. Even both of us try to connect. It is not happening. One day it will be like, okay, it is so fake. It is not very healthy. It is. I don't think it is mistaken either side. It's just a misunderstanding or something. Parents cannot really have a healthy relationship with the child during this pandemic, especially.
Okay. So for this, I would the best course would be to have an authentic conversation. Okay, because a lot of times when we talk about emotions or feelings, we usually subside a lot of things. Okay, we actually kind of downgrade a lot of emotions we feel. Okay, we feel that okay, sharing this may not be the appropriate thing to do or something like that. So being authentic with yourself and with your parents. Okay, first you have to have an understanding as to what you are feeling. Okay, what are the emotions which you are going through, what are the cognitive processes. Being aware and conscious of yourself and doing the same with your parents and helping them do the same. Okay, because this requires a conducive environment of free talk for them to actually interact with you. So a neutral, a facilitative phase wherein you can be authentic with your parents and your parents can be authentic with you will be the best way to connect. Okay, because some topics might be difficult to talk about. If that is so, you can always take a break from the conversation, return to the topic after maybe a day of rest or something. Okay, so having authentic conversations is one way to facilitate communication.
Thank you, sir. So true. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how do we make them actually listen to us? Like, if we're trying to give them like some kind of like, I don't know, valuable opinions or whatever it is, they have this preconceived notion that we're going to come and be all pretentious and act like we know everything, but we're actually just trying to talk. So how do we like convey it to them? How do we make them listen to us?
That is why, as I said, this is not an immediate process. It requires continuous effort, constant effort, and this actually takes time. Okay, for especially for a child to reach out to a parent and being understood or being validated by the parent. Okay, it actually requires a lot of effort. So, as I said, authentic conversations are one way, and it has to be put forth in a way in which they understand. Okay, rebelling against them is not going to help us in any way. So putting forth ideas and facts in ways which are actually acceptable to both parties is very crucial. See, this is basically a negotiation you are having. Okay, in trade unions and all, we have negotiations, so it's going to be a negotiation again. Okay, you have to strive for a win-win situation, and for that communication is key. So establishing the proper base for communication is important.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. There is one more question in the chat
Yes, sir.
box. For the day, it can be a last one. I hope because many good number of questions has been answered over here, and the rest of
Yes,
the
sir.
questions can be sent across to.
Pardon, sir. I'm not. You're not audible.
No, rest of the questions could be answered through an email.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. One more question. Can I go for it, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes. How can I limit my children's screen time during this pandemic? This is actually in chat box.
Sir, that is a very controversial question at this point because their learning is predominantly through mobiles. So if I have actually come across children wherein they have like 5 or 6 hours of class in a day. Okay, so in that case, reducing the screen time may not be possible. But if we are talking about casual use of screens, okay, maybe for gaming or watching YouTube videos, finding an alternative outlet for that energy which they have would be a best thing to do. Maybe engage them in dancing. Okay, you can just put some music in the house and just ask them to dance. Okay, so finding an outlet for these energies. Okay, the children actually have a lot of energy, and in the pandemic, it is very constrained. So finding a suitable outlet which works for the child to be, for the energy to be released is the main way to reduce screen time, sir. Casual screen time, that is.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hope it's been answered. Yes, I request Dr. Salim to give special thanks to our today's speaker. Followed by, I request Dr. Subhasri ma'am to propose a vote of thank. Dr. Salim, sir.
Thank you, Veera sir.
Thanks,
for Thank you, Vivian, sir. It was a nice, wonderful presentation, and
Thank you, sir.
you very well attempted and give the perspective, long perspective for adolescent and autonomy, and you rightly find out the gap. So there is a definitely gap between adolescent and autonomy in Indian perspective, sir, actually. So in communication, active listening, it is not there. So you rightly said, and there is a culture difference between East and West. Whereas here, and family group oriented and harmony with the nature, all those things are okay. But even though, like you said, typing of typical parenting of India, like micromanagement and helicopter parenting, all those things probably it is the thing for a little, disturbing for the autonomy purpose, like feeling of doing something there, they couldn't be able to take a decision by their own. So that is the, like identifying them as a unique, it is not possible because of this typical parenting in India. So our Indian strength is actually, we have the very good, wonderful human resource. That is the very powerful strength of India, because you rightly identify 80% of Indian populations become adolescent, and even age of 5 to 34 belonging to the young people. So these people to be empowered for the betterment of the country. So this can be happen from the home. So through the parenting. So parenting is very much important. So for this, the gap to be minimized by the parenting. So we have to empower the adolescent. It can be started from the home. So like emotional way, as you said, and behavioral way and value, having independent attitude, belief, all those things can be parenting. Parent can be empowered the adolescent. Then we can have the better human resource of the country. So thank you. Nice, wonderful title, sir. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for the kind words, sir.
Thank you so much, Vivian. That was a wonderful session. Very interactive, I should say. And you covered it. It's a very comprehensive one. I really like the way you connected with the ground reality. The ground reality, how it is we have to really handle. So that was fantastically presented, and I enjoyed the session. Thank you so much. And please accept our gratitude from the Department of Psychology, American College, Madurai, Tamil Nadu, and as well as our Madras School of Social Work, in association with the other organizations like Red Band Academy and MS Challamuthu Rehabilitation Trust, and as well as International Center for Clinical Oncology, Germany and Turkey. Thank you so much. This is the 256th episode, and people are traveling with us right from the beginning. I could see that a lot of old our own spectators and participants were joining us today. Thank you so much for supporting us. And it is a kind of an cause. We began on April 14th, and it is rolling on with a lot of enthusiasm, with an energy, with positive vibes, only because of wonderful resource persons like you, and as well as the beautiful participants who have been very active throughout, and our core team. Thank you so much, one and all present here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor.
Even you did really well.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.